Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nov. Good morning, Jonathan.
Hey
Nice
there,
to
Tony.
meet
Good
you.
to see you again.
Good to see you too. How you been?
I'm good. I'm good. Enjoying my summer.
Yeah, you got on Sunday morning, so that's a shout out to you for your commitment for this.
I'm very curious.
Okay. Yeah, me too. Um, this live stream will likely be a bit shorter than our typical ones. I'm actually on vacation. I'm in Miami right now. Um, so we'll probably keep it within an hour, I'd say. Um, Probably start wrapping up around 11. Um, and if anything else comes up along the way, we could probably continue the conversation next week,
Hmm.
um, or we could figure out something throughout the week. Maybe we'll do a post or do maybe a mini live stream throughout the week. Um, so the typical process for this for these weekly live streams is that we always have the same starting script, right? Because we don't know who's new for these live streams, and for anyone who's listening, if they're finding this a little exhausting to hear me to say the same intro every time, I'm sorry, but there's always new people. Essentially, what we do with these workshops, we work with Near Legion as one of the city nodes, specifically the designated city node for New York City. Um, Near Legion is a collective of nodes that do workshops around the Near stack. Right now, the primary focus is Near AI and agentic frameworks. Near has their own agentic framework that's focused around privacy called Ironclaw. Um, and Build City, which Nub and I are co-founders of, have been doing workshops, boot camps, meetups, and these virtual sessions for really years now at this point. Um, and it's taken off within the last few months for sure, as we've solidified this partnership with Near and Near Legion. Um, our goal with these virtual workshops is for them to be open ended. They typically happen on Saturdays. For this specific one, we had to do it for Sunday, and it's open to the community for them to come in and voice their opinions on using Ironclaw, provide suggestions, and even sometimes showcase what they've been working on. Us specifically, we've been engaging other industries and the real world and understanding how these agentic frameworks can build solutions for some problems that are specific to certain industries. We've been working with a mortgage analyst, uh, or rather a mortgage broker. And of course, the biggest challenge they run into is qualifying leads, as well as just the general organization of these leads and understanding when it is appropriate to contact them when they are able to meet certain qualifications that make them a viable lead and doesn't waste time for the person coming for the mortgage and for the actual mortgage broker. So we've been working with her. The primary intention is that we develop something that helps solve her issues and her industry as a whole. And even more importantly, is to establish a method of development with these new agentic tools. And we've been documenting this weekly, um, outlining some of the concerns and some of the issues that we've seen along the way, as well as practices that could make this process easier for both ourselves and anyone else that's watching. We've set a deadline for August 29th. That's when we're looking to deliver something of an MVP for Pooja to test publicly, criticize, and for us to work on it iteratively, so that we can have additional users tested out from her industry. Um, so we've also kind of started discussing what that user testing would look like and what the sample size would be. But she has her own team that would essentially be using this MVP as well once it's developed to a point where she feels it's stable enough and valuable enough for the rest of her team and her industry to check out. So that's essentially what we've been working on, and the process that we've established so far. Um,
Yeah, you want to ship fast, break things fast, answers outside the room, right? Like the classic startup advice for making MVPs. So,
exactly, and one thing that you said to me in person that resonated was the human nature of developing with these tools, right? Like the nature is that like maybe the right way to do things is, oh, like I'm gonna understand what I'm doing as I'm prompting these agents, right? um like every single prompt you'd stop and say what's happening, right? And like that's the right way of doing things, right? But like the human nature and what probably everyone does, right? Even software engineers, right, probably do this, is that they'll just keep on prompting it, right, until something looks like it works, right? Maybe they might break it up into stages, but if it works, you're like, okay, this works. And what you propose is that, okay, like once you've created something that works, let's figure out a process where you can actually reverse engineer it and see how you got to that end stage,
mhm,
right? Like that resonated with me, and honestly, like I've been kind of like seeing how I could do that on my workflow and on the way I've been developing, right? How can I kind of pause, not completely say that I'm going to build out everything from 0 to 100 and then deconstruct it, but at
mhm,
least like if I were to break it up by stages, then at the end of the stage I say, okay, this thing works. Maybe along the way I kind of changed things up, maybe I added a skill to make things easier,
mhm,
but now I'm gonna actually go back and see how this whole thing works, right? What's
mhm,
the system design
mhm,
aspect? How is
mhm,
data
mhm,
flowing from one end to the
mhm,
other? Like what are the security considerations?
mhm,
But I'm not like hampering myself or like thinking that like I'm not like forcing myself to have the imposter syndrome of like, okay, I'm doing it wrong. Let me like not do it this way.
mhm,
I'm just like letting myself
mhm,
do the prompting, letting myself build the thing
mhm,
out,
mhm,
and then I'm saying it's okay. Like this is a new age of building,
mhm.
but let's like make sure that all the ends are tied and make sure like I'm developing in a way that I understand how the data flows throughout.
Yeah, it's important to be kind to yourself, which is what you're doing. So
Exactly. Yeah.
that's good. That's great. And this workflow is like brand new, and there's no textbook written on it on this, but there will be. There will be a textbook written on it. They're gonna have a class like this in college one day. How to do this kind of reverse engineering, and
Yeah.
but for now, it's uncharted territory. So.
It's uncharted territory. And the thing is like it's so vital to kind of understand system
Hmm.
design
Hmm. Hmm.
rather than like this might be blasphemy, but rather than like focusing on how to like code from end to end, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
the entire process of understanding that, because a lot of it can be done with these with AI, and if there are gaps, right? It's moving so quickly that it could be in a matter of weeks or months that those gaps get like covered by these like AI tools, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's like thinking like an engineer matters, but it almost seems like you should understand how the systems work rather than like focusing purely on like, okay, like I need to know how to code, or like there's something highly sophisticated that requires me to learn how to do it. Like maybe there's bits and pieces, but if you understand the system design, like even those gaps are likely to be covered by the time you understand how system design works, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. You're not going to try to catch up with AI. You can't do that. It's impossible.
Exactly.
So you can only grow as a person yourself, through like, systems thinking and just being able
Mhm.
to see things at a top level view. And then sometimes maybe you'll drill down and maybe you'll learn something clever from reverse engineering it, and
Exactly.
that's the arc of this experience.
Exactly. It's a new age of engineers.
Hmm.
Um, so to give a bit of a recap on what was built um, last week and what we showed. I'm just gonna share my screen here. Okay, and okay. So we created this mortgage lead qualification MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first phase, and basically, and this phase was just to show that like the core lead qualification workflow works, right? That like the lead qualification engine works. We're using fake data um, and local storage within the browser itself.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to make sure that we're recording an audit history to understand like how these leads were rated. We assigned lead priority, and the results were shown as hot, warm, cold, not ready, or requiring manual review. And then we would calculate things like debt to income ratio. Um, and then we would we created a flow where we allow the auditor to basically um, approve, reject, or override these leads. So this was just like to make sure like all the logic works, um, to understand like the flow of things. Um, but moving on to this, the second phase was to make the prototype like more real, make sure it's secure
Mm-hmm.
and it's connected. Uh, we kind of broke down the phase into different parts, but the first one is to make sure we have like a real back end, right? So moving away from browser only storage to maybe like Superbase or Postgres, adding authentication, um, tenant separation, row level security, server side validation. Like security was one of the bigger things that I was focusing on for the second phase of things. Um, we want to make sure there's real lead intake. So instead of Buja manually typing into um, this site, we want to start bringing leads through other channels like WhatsApp. Ironclaw has great integrations with WhatsApp, so that seemed like a good place to potentially start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we want to make sure we utilize skills to define playbooks for collecting leads, validating information, creating broker summaries,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then just like the process of lead generation and enrichment of the data. So we want to connect approved outside sources and APIs so leads can be generated and
Mm-hmm.
enriched with additional information while keeping track where all the data actually came from. So that was the intention of phase two. Um, Obviously, uh, it's quite a task even with all these uh, agentic, even with Ironclaw and all the AI tools that we have. We did run into some challenges, um, but uh, we did
The,
have some. Yeah, sorry, John.
the key thing is that if you're building a backend, you want to have like an entity relationship diagram. Like that's the first thing you need, because if you don't have a really good entity relationship diagram of the backend, you're gonna get like spaghetti, and it'll be very difficult to like maintain and update. So the you want to have like, it's called a data model. So you want to do like a data modeling, and there's like different theories of data models out there. Like how do you want to like atomize the data, and what tables should be dedicated to what, facts. They're called like fact tables. That's one data model. And so you want to get that thing in first, because once you have a good entity relationship diagram, you're going to have an easier time, for things that you may not expect to happen, where you're going to have to update your backend. You want to have a data model that will make that as easy as possible, because otherwise you're going to get spaghetti, and it'll be like redundant tables, and there'll be more than one way to query something, and it'll be confusing, and it's going to be really messy, and it will totally happen. It'll be the most natural thing. It's going to grow, like a city, like a natural city, like from Europe, like those
Yeah.
old cities, right? You want a city like Manhattan, like grids, letters and numbers, like so it'll be easy to navigate. So you want to so when you're building a backend, just consider what kind of like data model, what kind of ERD diagram you want to have to make it good for the future for updates.
Okay. And these ERD diagrams, is there like standard ERD diagrams that are already out there, or is it?
Yeah, for sure. Like ERD diagrams, they've been around for like decades, and there are different like ideas, and there are different like use cases for them. And there's like different models. Some models you just atomize a lot of the data. Other models they like the data is kind of like has tables that it lives in, and all the data in that table is like really closely affiliated with each other, so it's not as atomized. So those are like the two extremes of different data models out there. They have specific names. I forgot what the names were. They're named after the researchers that studied them. And uh and so uh uh so uh so you just want to like research the different data models out there for entity relationship diagrams, and pick the one that is the best for your use case. And that'll prevent the backend from turning to spaghetti, down the line.
Yeah, yeah, definitely good advice. I mean, to produce spaghetti and then trying to untangle all of it is gonna it would make this infinitely more difficult and longer.
Mhm.
I'd rather understand how to model it in a way that it does produce something that, like you said, is more like Manhattan than a
Right,
sprawling city, right?
right. Yeah. In this case, more like Manhattan, less like Paris. Okay, so.
That's a hot take, and I didn't say it. Okay, that's interesting. Um, okay, I think I'd probably look into that a bit more, and then maybe discuss that a bit on the following stream, because that seems definitely like something that um, should have already been done. Um, but we're learning along the way, so it's something that should be focused on. One thing that I wanted to do was, and maybe I can get your input on it as well,
Sure.
Jonathan, and now since you're on here. Um, I do follow this person who speaks about system design and cybersecurity, and I'm sure this is not a comprehensive review of all the potential security risks that do come from developing these vibe coded applications. But he has outlined um, seven of them, and I wanted to make sure that before I started to get into like the actual um, structure of how this application is built,
Mhm.
when we're moving towards real data, that I cover my bases with security. Uh, Let me go ahead and share my screen again.
Mhm. Well, Iron Claw is great for security. That's what I'm learning. So.
It is. It is. But I can always mess up in the actual development of the application. So, uh, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, I could sort of see it. Sure.
It's bit small, Tony.
Sorry, what was that now?
It's bit small. Can you zoom a little bit?
I, I zoomed in like on my computer, and
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, there's a YouTuber who goes by RJ McCandles. Um, and essentially, he's outlined seven potential security concerns when it comes to these vibe coded applications. Um, he proposes that there's the same number of issues that come, same number of mistakes that come as people develop these vibe coded applications, and that these are the things that people should look out for as they're developing these out. Um, so he starts with authorization, um, and he basically says that the first thing he check, um, because it's a quick fix and the failure is catastrophic, is how, and he goes into how to test for it. Essentially, he says to log in as user A, take any request with an ID in it, and order a project, a document, and swap in someone else's ID. If the API returns data, congratulations, you found the single most common vulnerability in vibe coded applications. Uh, the fancy name is insecure direct object reference. And he says the root cause is always the same. Your app checked that someone was logged in, but never checked who was asking for what. Right. So the user A sends a request. It sends it to the order table, and essentially it brings out like the wrong data associated with another user. Um, and he proposes a fix that's outlined in two layers. Uh, One, he says to turn on row level security so that the database itself refuses to hand out rows the user does not own, and to scope every query in the API routes anyway. Um, Essentially, this way, like you're making sure that whatever request is sent is from the appropriate user, and that you're not pulling in data that's associated with another user. Um, I'm curious, Jonathan and
Yeah,
Nav,
yeah.
uh, as you've dealt with these vibe coding tools or these AI tools, if this is something that you've seen that's kind of common um, in the development process, or do you feel like these AI tools kind of look out for some of these more basic security issues?
Well, I mean, the important thing is to like understand like what he's talking about. So if you scroll down a little, well, I can scroll down a little bit. Yeah, in the SQL code. So this is SQL code, right? And then all of a sudden it stops up. Okay, and then it says like using auth.uid equals user underscore ID. So this is where you're like comparing keys, right? These are keys to a table, primary keys to a table. And so by comparing primary keys to a table, you can that's your row level security. That way you don't combine data from two different tables that are not related to each other through a primary key.
Mhm.
Um, so this is like, SQL 101. And so because it's SQL 101, I'm tempted to say that like a coding app like that's really sophisticated, like, like Claude, probably knows this because this is like SQL 101, with the primary keys. Um, but it's also so fundamental that you want to know that yourself, because and this goes back to our conversation about the entity relationship diagram. Because when you have back in the day, you would just have the entity relationship diagram in front of you because that's like your map to query the database. And so you'd see that, okay, this table has like it relates to this table through this primary key, and so and that's your security. But if you don't know about how primary keys and foreign keys and all that stuff, then you might introduce a mistake like this. So to answer your question, I think that like these days, like Claude would know this, but an individual a person should also be aware of what this is, because it's fundamental, and it's not too challenging to understand.
Yeah, and I could imagine it's probably a good place to start for a person to start understanding how this works, because I'm sure this could compound, right? Like maybe even if it's covered by these coding tools, that if you haven't understood it from this like kind of one-on-one aspect of things, that
Yeah,
if some other issues were to come later on, that you'd probably have somewhat of a challenge of uh, deconstructing what those issues are if you're not understanding these more basic concepts. It kind
yeah,
of gives you the space to understand them, like maybe the AI can do it, but it's easier for you to kind of think about it from that like system design aspect of things.
hmm
Yeah, I want to add few things, right? So, uh, The whole premise for vibe coding is why vibe coding became so popular and so adaptable across is people started thinking that you don't need to think as an engineer, right? You don't need to be a computer science engineer. You can just prompt it and you will be able to have your front end, back end, an entire application by and large, right? So the ideology of vibe coded itself was not, I would not, I'll not go into details, but ideology of vibe coding itself was not aligned with software engineering itself, right? So software engineering has these phases where you understand requirement, as Jonathan was saying, you come up with a data model, you come up with the architecture, and then the coding and then the actually writing the code for your components comes way later, right? But what vibe coding gave us opportunity that, oh, you can build your MVP without thinking of all these security things or all these data models. But having said that, right, that once you validate your idea, and then you should be start thinking from the context of the software engineering. So if we start uh, with, let's say, start with the data modeling, then it becomes like a computer science class. But the way that we want to look at it again, that how as a human being you should understand these concepts, but at the same time you don't need to think from the computer science point of view. You should think from the journalist point of view, that okay, if somebody is coming in my house, I should probably lock my door, so probably, or I should have the proper keys. So these authorization is the keys that I am giving to few people so that they can come in my room, right? So it cannot, or maybe like I have 5 rooms, then out of 5 rooms I just want to give the permission to the 2 rooms to the few people, and another permission to the rest of the people, right? So we have to just communicate in that sense, so that they will still understand these concepts, and then start able to prompt the AI with those concepts. AI will be able to figure out what technically it needs to be done, but at the same time, we need to create those mental framework authorization, that why it is important as a concept itself when you start developing the application. So not specifically going into what database, what is like joins, right? That it gets intimidated when I talk to someone who is an MBA student, right? They have never understand who is operational analyst, right? They have, or you someone who is works in a factory, right? They say that I don't want to do this stuff, man. And this looks so difficult for me. But when we start bringing them with wherever they are, what language that they understand, then gradually they will understand, oh, this is not that difficult that I used to think. So I think the vibe coding solves that, but again, at the same time, by and large, that the spaghetti code and all these design thinking has to be attached to it. So that's what we were planning. Our plan is, right, that we're starting not with not with the structure. We are starting with the messy things at this point of time, as Tony was showing that, and then we will break it down. We will break it down that, oh, why it is important, why it failed, and what is the right way to look at it from the, not from the, even from someone who is technical, that's fine. If somebody who's not technical, that also it should make sense for them.
One of the things that you want to do is like when you design a backend with an AI, you kind of want to like stress test it. So like you have an AI chat invent some queries to query this like entity relationship diagram, and then you run the queries, and then you compare the answers by hand, like
Mhm.
and then you see that, and that's like you're doing evals that way, and then you see if this matches your expectations. That's like one thing, and then another thing, like the thing with like agents is that you have more than one agent working on the same problem, and so you could also use I mean, agents are very deterministic, but you could also have like LLM as a judge, where you can have another LLM look at the work,
I
because
see.
the thing with LLMs, because they're like probabilistic, once they get like a prompt, right? They've already associated these like words next to each other, and it's like unlikely that they will associate another word next to that word because they already are going down that association path. So maybe they'll never get the answer, but another LLM is like fresh and it doesn't have those associations yet, so we'll make new associations, and maybe it will hit an association that the other LLM really didn't have a chance of hitting, and then that association that it hit was like, oh, is like matters to the project, and that's like LLM as a judge. It's the same thing as like bringing somebody in from the outside to look at a problem, like somebody that has like a fresh perspective, because they don't suffer from like groupthink from being inside. So they bring somebody from outside. So that's the same idea as like using LLM as a judge, like where you bring in another LLM, that doesn't have all those associations that you created chatting with the first LLM to look at it again. It's or like opening up a new chat window. There are a lot of different ways to do it, I imagine. But yeah,
Sorry, not to
no,
interrupt.
yeah.
So, are you proposing that's done during the actual like testing process, or is that built into the workflow itself? And then, if you are kind of using like a fresh LLM, how do you determine like which output is the correct one from the two outputs that's produced by each LLM?
That's a good question. It's a very tricky question because LLMs they don't know when to like finish a conversation.
Hmm.
So if you have two LLMs that are chatting with each other, they'll go on forever. And then you run the risk of gold plating, right? You run the risk of gold plating, which is where you just like build features that your customer doesn't want just for the
Right,
sake of building it. And
right,
so and LLMs can definitely end up gold plating a product for you. And so how do you prevent gold plating is probably the same way that you would prevent is how would you figure out if which LLM is right, which is you want to stick to what features your customers actually want and just stick to that, and then you'll avoid overbuilding, which would happen with LLMs and would happen like just with humans,
right.
um, so and that, where does it live? Does it live in your workflow, or is it in your testing phase? Um, I don't know the answer to that question. But this does cost more tokens, just so you know. You know.
Right, right. Definitely, the cost of tokens needs to be considered for the entirety of this. Um, I mean, it shows like what the value is for the human to come in and say like these are the rules, right? This is what we're looking. These are pretty much the exact outputs that we're looking for, so that you're not just letting these models just run endlessly, right? And then produce like endless features that the client doesn't want, or maybe the industry doesn't want as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Speaking about clients in another sense, he also went on to outline some of the other more common issues that come from vibe coding. And the second one he says is never trust the client, right? So he says every check in your front end is a suggestion. Um, Users can open up dev tools, edit requests, or skip your UI entirely and hit the API with curl. If your service trusts the request body, an attacker can set their own price at checkout, quietly hand themselves an admin role. So your beautiful form validation never even gets a say. Um, and he goes into practices that can be helpful. Um, he says validate everything again on the server, define a schema for each route, whitelist the fields you accept, and never let the client decide things like prices, roles, or permissions. What I love about the entirety of how he kind of constructs the solution is that he basically says to prompt the agent. Right? It's not that he's suggesting that you like go into the code and figure out what's happening. Maybe that is the best way to do things, but he essentially says to prompt the agent the following, something like the following, to add server side ZOD, which is a TypeScript library that checks whether the data matches the structure and the rules that you expect before your app uses it, to validate ZOD validation to every API route, whitelist fields, never spread request bodies into the DB rights, and never take prices, roles, or permissions from the client. I could imagine this being one of the things that could slip through the cracks when someone's vibe coding, like purely just vibe coding something, and has the intention to sell their product. Right? They might not think about like where the security comes from, and that like the client isn't where the security should start. That it should be really built into the back end, the back end part of the stack.
Tony, can you add Jill to the stage?
Uh, hey, Jalt, hey, Pooja. Sorry, guys, I didn't realize both of you were in the backstage. Um, but essentially, we were just speaking on system design and a couple of the more common issues that show up as your vibe coding things. This is not like an extensive, comprehensive review of some of the challenges that might come along the way, but there are a couple that have been identified um, by a YouTuber who focuses on system design and cybersecurity. Um, so obviously, these AI models use tokens. It gets expensive. If somebody wants to just kill you on the on the financial side of things, maybe you have a competitor who's trying to attack your application.
Right.
Um, they can kill you with like a four-figure AI bill, if not more, right? Uh, so he says to ask this about every endpoint. What happens if someone calls it 100,000 times tonight? For most vibe coded apps, the honest answer is a four-figure AI bill, a spam user base, or a database on fire. The usual victims are login, password reset, and anything that calls an LLM, and anything that sends email or text messages. Um, Definitely relevant for us as lead intake platform. You're probably going to be using a channel like email or WhatsApp or something else like in that nature. Um, and he proposes the fix a one sliding window counter per IP request, checked at the top of each sensitive route. And Upstash Redis makes this about 10 lines. He shows some of the standard code, and then he provides a prompt here. He says to add rate limiting with upstash/rate limit, keyed by IP and user ID to every endpoint that costs money or can be abused, login, setup, password reset, AI calls, and emails. One thing that I find interesting is that you could really probably just give like your AI this entire document and say like how produce a plan on how you would implement each one of these, and then go on and implement them. Right? Like I feel like that could probably be a solid way to cover all 7 of these potential security concerns. How do you feel about it, Jonathan and Nov?
Yeah, I had asked an AI that question once because I was afraid of getting like hacked by like malicious actors. Like
Mm,
I was afraid of like them using my app like a bunch of times, and then I'm getting a huge bill. Just like how you said, I was totally afraid of this.
mm,
And and so the AI suggested, oh, just put like a limit, like a $10 limit on the API calls, and then you have to
right.
wait a certain time before they reset. You know, and I said, okay, that's a good solution, and okay, let's build that. So but the key thing is that you have to like put yourself in the headspace of like a malicious actor. Like how would you like mess up your own app? If you're building the app, how would you mess up your own app? Great advice like for playing chess is that which move would be the worst for you to see from your opponent. That's what you plan against when you're playing chess. It's not like you're hoping your opponent will make a move that you want to see, or it's like your opponent will make a move that you don't want to see. So that's what you plan for when you're playing the game of chess. And so the same thing with like but like I'm sure there are lots of vibe coders out there that are very sweet and naive and have no idea that the world is filled with a lot of like not nice people. So like but you had to get yourself into the headspace of like a malicious actor to ask, to even ask the question for AI, hey, how can I prevent this from happening, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a malicious actor might use AI to try to break your application too, right? So like they're also a bit more empowered on their side of things as well, right? So you're kind of trying to play chess as you're thinking of like, okay, there's like two sides of things, and both of them are empowered by these super tools, right? So it's like how can I make sure that I'm secure against like another guy on the other side who's playing with these tools and might be a little more experienced than I am at development, right? And understanding how data flows through these things.
Yeah, and just to add one more point, right? Security is not like a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process, right? So you have to keep evaluating at certain stages that what is going on, because these security measures currently, which is applicable today, may get vulnerable tomorrow. So you have to keep identifying, having those security reviews, audits, security audits. Every company that has the good app, they keep doing the security audits, finding the vulnerability, fixing them, going
Hmm.
forward. So just it's just a mitigation plan for your, like it's like a wear and tear that happens in your house, that you always cognizant of that. So it's also applicable similar to your software, that wear and tear, and also the maintenance part. Yeah, every time you want to make sure that whatever that you have built is properly intended, that for the users it is safe, and also like people, those who are using, they can use it with trust.
Yeah, build your house securely and then make sure it's maintained over the years.
Yes.
Definitely good advice. Um, and it does kind of play into like the supply chain security. I hear this a lot from engineers. You wrote maybe 2% of the code you're shipping. The rest came from npm, and every line of it runs with full access to your server, your env files, your database. One hijack deep, one hijack package deep in the dependency tree becomes your problem the moment you install it. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so the fix is know what you install, pin what you know, and let robots watch it for you. Commit the lock file. Install with npm CI so builds are reproducible. Failed CI on known vulnerabilities, and turn on Dependabot. So Dependabot can let you know when something within the supply chain has an issue. Um, and you could prompt your agent, right? Audit my dependencies or remove anything unneeded or sketchy. Commit the lock file, use npm CI and CI, fix npm audit highs, and add weekly Dependabot updates. Um, I think even Vercel, like if there's like a security breach for an npm package, the Vercel won't even let you deploy your projects. So there are security built in deployment. Um, but I'm sure like you're definitely gonna want to understand like where these security issues show up, and this is a little scary, right? Because like maybe you've done the best from your application point of view, but something along the way might have an issue, and you've gone on to expose yourself in a way that you didn't even account for just because there's some kind of supply chain issue.
um, yeah, it's really important to have like a model for for your security, right? So there are different like security models out there. So there's one that's really popular called zero trust, you know, and so zero trust is like if you're even on the inside, like if you already passed the gates, that doesn't mean that you're like unmonitored, you know? Like typically, like, you know, like typically security was like this. If you're outside, you know, you get scrutinized. If you're outside trying to come in, you get scrutinized. Okay. And then, oh, if you have the ID, okay, then you're in. And then nobody would watches what you do inside the building because you're in. You're like one of us, you know, and nobody watches you, right? And that's like typical security for like, you know, a lot of organizations because monitoring takes resources, and you know, like, I mean, like, if we hired you, we trust you, why do we have to watch what you're doing inside the building, right? So that's like regular security. But zero trust security is when even if you're inside the building, you're still being like watched. There's still like an audit and stuff like that. And so there's all these like cool software things that were developed over time for businesses to have zero trust security. So there's probably zero trust security for agents too, that are working in your app. But again, like in order to like build something with this, you have to know that the concept exists.
Mhm.
It's like a paradox. Like, if you can't put yourself into the mind of a malicious actor, if you don't know there's a concept like this exists, you're probably not gonna ask the AI about it. How could you ask the AI about it if you don't know that it exists? And how is the AI supposed to? It doesn't read your mind. It's not telepathic. It
Right.
so not that even if it would read your mind, it still wouldn't find it because you don't know it. So the key thing is to actually this is what context engineering is. It's like being aware that these questions exist, so you can have a really good prompt. You can give your AI the tools for success.
Yeah, it almost seems now is like um, you need to know what the right questions are to ask, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what the development is now. Maybe not so much to understand how to build it out, but knowing that these are the things that you're looking for, right? And these are the things to ask the AI tools, because like you said, they can't read your mind. They're not going to be able to just off of a general sense of what you want to create, build an entire application that's going to work all the time and it's secure all the time. Like that's just not where they're at. And I'm not sure if we want it to be like that, right? Like we still want it to be in a way that we're spending the time to understand what these things are, like what we're looking for and what we need to look out for from the security perspective, right? Like that human involvement, that human thought process of things. Um, but it still goes back to like you need to know what you don't know and you need to ask
Mhm.
those questions, and that's really what it is, right? If you can ask those questions, then much of it's handled from the building perspective through these tools.
There's a lot of good comments in the chat. Satya said that ZT, zero trust, is a start, but it also has a temporal element. And Satya continues to say that for agents we need even more. So that's cool.
Oh, very cool. Actually, I can bring Satya to the stage. Satya, not to put you on the spot, if you don't want to talk, that's okay. But if you want to expand a bit on what you mean, that would be great.
Yes, please.
Yep, you're on stage. If you wanna speak.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and
All
Yes.
right.
clear.
So what I meant by temporal is, right, you now know you're starting from zero, right? So you're not allowing everybody and say I'm going to stop these people. You're going the other way around and saying I'm allowing nobody, and then I'm going to start adding one by one, right? That's the inverse way of how we thought about security. The second part of it is, once you're in, that's okay. But again, what is this job doing at 3 a.m. in the night, right? Or 3 a.m. in the morning, right? That's the temporal element.
Mhm.
And then is the number of times that that an access gets called for. It is not just saying this role does it have access to this endpoint. That is just one element. The other elements are, right, how is this actually getting used, right? Is it supposed to come in once a week, once a day, certain times of the day, those kind of threat intelligence to understand who is truly using the system. And then if you think about the zero trust architecture, the very fact that it was pre agentic era, right? We probably I don't know if there are some benchmarks around it, but with the agents, the problem is now what used to be what humanly somebody can write, or even basic cron jobs they might have scheduled at x number of times. If the agents start intelligently saying let me optimize and run it at 3 a.m, 2 a.m, 5 a.m, there's many type of combinations that you probably did not expect that the agents might do, right? But then you also need to figure out, okay, these are all still, first you need to understand, is this traffic that I expect or traffic I don't expect? And then if it is traffic that I do expect, then the question is to say, okay, uh, if these guardrails that you still need to put some guardrails around, however the brain decided to run something, to execute uh, something on the tentacles, to say let me go do this, let me go do that. You still need some clamp to say, no matter what you did, before you proceed to the next step, you need to get some kind of accountability in some periodic review, so that you can do whatever you can, but before you move out of the boundary into another department or another organization outside your trading partner network, you can or cannot do this, or simply stop there, right? So if you look at these number of times for lack of better words, it's like if it was n in zero trust, agentic workflows might be some factor of that, which is a lot more workloads coming in, lot more combinations,
Mhm.
that has to be clamped to say, I still need to map it to how it would have been if I can actually thoroughly investigate this.
Mhm.
Mm.
So that observability becomes important. I think that slowly is coming, because I was in one of the discussion boards this week. One of the reports that they were talking about is, people are saying this is the problem now, because the visibility around it is very low, in uh, less than 10% right now.
Sorry, in what review?
In terms of how many agents are doing what, in terms of, do I truly know? Most CISOs reported they don't even know how many agents are there in their environment.
They don't know how many agents are
Are
doing.
there in their environment?
Oh, are there in their environment?
Correct.
I
So
see.
people are doing all kinds of things, right? Now, there was a survey that was put out to say, okay, how many agents are there in your environment? Less than 10% are confident to say, I know how many are there.
Interesting.
That's an important data bit to think about.
So you almost want to slow down the speed that your application is doing things, right? So that you can check, like, one, what the agents are doing, how many agents are doing what are agents doing, and where are they doing it in. Like, you're almost trying to create latency in your application until we can understand how to do this in a more fluid way. Like,
Correct.
like
So
yeah.
you cannot instrument to the point you will reduce the latency. It has to be some kind of like non-intrusive techniques to kind of understand this. And all that we said is right. And also one other element is when is where the temporals happen, right? At what times of the day, at what times of the week, at what times of the month, right? So that is where the patterns are. The thing is, the damage can happen. You could have monitored n number of times, and that was another interesting point. Before a breach happens, uh, typically the actors have been in your system for some time. They don't come in and immediately cause damage.
Mhm.
They behave good after until a certain point, and
Mhm.
then they cause the damage.
Hmm.
This is what the research is showing.
So you need to set up a process where you're constantly validating uh, who's doing what in your system, right?
Correct.
Like every single time.
Colloquially speaking, you need to understand who is the black sheep, even in your what you perceive as good agents.
Mhm. Mm.
These are all very interesting ways of
Yeah.
thinking about it. Which this is not just access control, is what it comes down to. It's access control plus understanding the motivation of the agents.
It's kind of intent, right? That you have
Yeah.
to also understand the intent control, and this is so interesting, right? That when you look at that, if you try to, so all these things, what we're trying to do here, Satya, is breaking down all these security concepts and engineering concepts to the point where it can be relatable to anyone, right? It should not be that somebody who understands the software engineering, programming, they should be able to, but people, those who are not familiar with these type of jargons or these terminology, they should also be, right. So this is very interesting, that think of this, that somebody, before somebody do the breach in your house or any malicious activity, they scout the entire area for a few days,
Yeah.
right? Before they do something. So similarly for these kind of security thing, that we have to understand that who is outside even of our boundaries, or maybe who is just encroaching our surface for some time and trying to do something, or they're already here and behaving someone like that. So I think it's a very interesting way to look at the security in the agentic era.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were a couple other security challenges that I wanted to go through for this stream, but I know we're starting to run out of time, and I want to make sure that I cover what's in the comments as well. Um, Jill, I'm sorry, I didn't see your comments. You commented maybe 30 minutes ago. Is there anything you wanted to say from the perspective of security and setting boundaries?
It's for me.
Yeah. I saw you had some comments in the chat.
Yeah, it's something that Jonathan was saying about the evaluation of the result, and about the judging the results using another agent to judge the output of a prompt. And yeah, it's something that is covered by our lesson in these two ways. We try to describe the goal command, which was part of just of Hermes. Now it's part of Cloud Code, and it's been integrated in many more harnesses as we speak, because it's a looping command and allows for evaluation of the output through the prompt. So you need to prompt the way you want the output to be evaluated, and that is an explicit kind of boundary. But if you look at the first lesson of the cycle in the web page that I have created, you can see that boundaries are mentioned immediately at the first when we start speaking about boundaries, we start speaking about boundaries. Because in particular, if you want a good automation, I mean, if you want the agent to work autonomously without checking every output, you need to set up boundaries properly inside the prompt. And these are two basic ways to avoid a lot of problems with the models that were mentioned by Jonathan. Yeah, let me check where it's mentioned, but it's a node. It's highlighted. So yeah,
Sorry, Jill, I actually brought your site to the screen.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's in the schizoid section, right? That you're referring to.
I think it's the first time it is. Yeah, good prompt specifies role, objective, context, scope output constraints, and the constraints are kind of boundaries. Elements that you need to preserve, those are boundaries too. Quality criteria, which are boundaries, and stop conditions. The more autonomous are, yeah, exactly. I think it's 1.1 section. It's the schizoid, yes. It's a note. There is a purple line on the left. So
a purple line on the left. I might not be able to see here.
Why aren't you?
I don't
Because
know.
maybe I didn't. Yeah, it's in my local website. I'm not sure you can see that in the.
It might be my
I'm
browser.
sorry.
It's okay. So I might be completely off with this, and I'm gonna say this colloquially. Do you essentially need to judge the judge when it comes into the flow of things here? Like if an agent is judging another agent's actions, would you need to also establish something to judge what that agent's doing? Like judge the judge essentially?
Yeah, it's not like you need to judge the judge, not while prompting. I mean, the result is there, okay? But you basically, what you do is you build the prompt, which is giving the intention to the model, in a way that the model builds boundaries on its own intentions, allows the model to be more autonomous, because otherwise the model would do things that you don't like. Like we were last time we were speaking with Nav about PRs, GitHub PRs, and how the models sometimes they do PRs without asking. They publish stuff to the to the GitHub repo that are not good. And this is something that I have seen many people struggling. While when the model has the skill to do a PR, you really need to set the boundaries inside the skill or inside the prompt. And if you don't do that, the model is gonna get rogue. Okay. So yeah, and it's a way to make them more autonomous, and it can be used inside the regular workflow. You know, the main agent skill or the main agent.md. Okay.
Curious question to throw out to the floor. Even if you were to create these boundaries within the skills, theoretically, could the agent still do what it wants, even if you were to create those boundaries?
I don't think so. I mean that if it does, it means that you didn't create the boundaries properly, because those files are the files that tell the agents how to behave. So yeah, I mean that usually the agent follows the configuration files. Okay. Some models, like the last GPT model, it's very autonomous. So, like, it's proven that for example, with the Soul GPT model, if you tell the model something that doesn't exist before asking you, before telling you I cannot find what you are mentioning here, the model will try and find it, and if it finds something similar, it's gonna behave badly, because it's very autonomous model. So it tries to accomplish the intent of the prompt, and that is the reason why, if you want autonomy from your model in the output, you should set the boundaries properly in the prompt.
And so when you want to set boundaries properly, right? How do you get into the state of mind where you could ID those boundaries?
I think there are some examples in the web page. In the there is also the first prompt is repeated. Okay, yeah, like in the first prompt. This is the first prompt, and it's. I'm just pasting it into the chat. It's just below. Like the last sentence, "Do not invent unverified features," is a good example of how to create a boundary for a model like ChatGPT. Okay. But also, in my experience, Google Gemini is similar, because it usually it creates a really large output. So the agent.md for Gemini is more rich of boundaries. Okay.
So creating the boundaries, creating an effective boundary condition is matters depending on which foundation model you're using, right? So a good boundary condition for Gemini will be different from a good boundary condition for GPT, and the genius Claude doesn't need any boundary condition. No, I'm just kidding. But like, is that accurate?
In fact, the fact that you need the boundary condition, it's independent from the model. But if you know the model that you're using, and I mean that you can use the same boundary in the agent.md, but they will be less effective if you change the model. And clearly, I mean, if you change the model, you should be aware. It's a good practice to be aware of the benchmarks of the models. For example, like the model that I have connected to the web page on the last, the coding model. It's a free model by OpenRouter at disposal for free, and I set the interface to query the model. That model has the same nation benchmark of Mistral, of the Mistral coding model. So it has 5 times more probability of hallucinating than ChatGPT Terra. Okay. Yeah, it's in the edge, really down. And yeah.
Sorry,
So
which section is it in? What you just referred to?
yeah, it's the last page. You need to scroll down again. Yeah, you see, test the model. But it's just a free model. I don't remember which one I chose, but it's one of the free models by OpenRouter. It's a coding model. So, but it has like a 80% hallucination benchmark. Okay, I'm gonna make it. And yeah, this benchmark is basically the probability of not hallucinating, and the last ChatGPT model has a probability of not hallucinating of 85%. So it's like a lot better than than this coding model, actually. But anyways, yeah, I think this is also the reason why platforms like OpenRouter, they publish benchmarks for their models, so that you understand how is the model that you're using. But honestly, I think that a boundary is a good thing. It's a healthy thing for the for how you want to set up your relationship with your own model. Uh, so, I mean, if I have a boundary in my agent that I'm not
Yeah, I think it's really great you brought
I
up these.
realize. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just complimenting you, Jill. I think it's really great that you brought up these points, because I'm sure that there are plenty of people that are listening in right now that were not even thinking about like boundaries for their prompts. So I think
Yeah.
it's good that you brought it up, and I think that moving forward, I think even my prompts will be better because you brought this up, because I don't usually think about boundary conditions either. So now I'm going to think about it more, and thank you so much for bringing up this idea.
Yeah, this is a lesson that is meant to build a basement in order to allow people to understand what Ironclaw does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a free lesson, and it's meant to teach the easiest, the simpler tools that we have, and then to step forward to OpenClaw. So yeah, it's just the basics. Really, it's nothing.
Oh, the basics are everything. The foundation is everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it allows you, to do a lot more. Yes, this is true. This is true.
Yeah, especially the way you presented it, Jill, in your website, it makes it much more easier to digest, right? And that's really where people want to start, right? This is kind of a new world and a new way of thinking of things. And I know for myself, like I haven't worked professionally as a software engineer. My background's EE, so it does provide me like that um, initial like easy way of digesting things as I continue to think about like how these systems work and how to think of it from a perspective of someone who's trying to make sure it's secure while understanding it's a moving target, right? As we understand these systems and as these systems expand.
Yeah, this idea of the moving target, it's very difficult for me because, and this is the reason why I've been working in 2000, and at the end of 2024, and for 6 months in 2025, I've been working with AI, with the image generation AI. But then I stopped because the environment is it's crazy. It's even crazier than the blockchain. and and so yeah, I'm approaching it on now on a different, trying to build something different, and trying to stick with the people that I like from the blockchain environment, because I like working on the blockchain, because there are some ethical reasons, some ethical values that the decentralization takes with itself, and I like. Okay. And the AI scenery, I don't know how to call it. It's not even an ecosystem. It's very difficult to navigate at the moment.
In what ways are you thinking that these models are too much black box, or is it too monopolized? What aspects of that basically do you think decentralization can play a better role?
With AI, it's a war.
Yeah.
It's the competition is at the highest levels, and it's so fast that sometimes you don't have the time to understand these little critical concepts that are in the lessons that are very important for your everyday life, but you are so full of these informations about big model, about big models and big breakthroughs, that sometimes it's difficult to connect with your reality.
Your website is great. I love these lessons. Navneet has been sharing your website in the chat, and I'm going to be going through all of them. This is really great stuff, and you really are very creative. I have to admit. So,
Thank you. If it's useful for people, I appreciate it. It's built just to be useful, and
I know
it's
it's so beautiful that you're doing something so nice for other people, and it looks really awesome. And I really will. I'm going to really dig into all the lessons that you made there.
I hope it will be useful, and I hope that we're gonna um, we're gonna build up something upon this lesson, because it's maybe gamified, maybe I don't know if I'm gonna have the time, because today I was struggling with Ironclaw on the local machine, so I will probably need to present it from the web environment, like Tony said yesterday. Yes, and so maybe I will need another week to build up the presentation.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you for saying these words, because yeah, you work on something, and it's good to receive some validation about it. So I'm glad it's useful. Okay.
For some context on both ends, and for everyone listening, Jilton, Jonathan, I know this is the first time both of you are meeting. Both of you are teachers, right? So both of
Ah,
you have worked professionally as teachers. So it's interesting to see you guys dialoguing about this back and forth.
It's mostly about compliments and making each other feel good.
yeah,
uh,
thank you.
thanks, Tony.
Um, Jilton, I know you wanted to show some things. I know we touched on it a bit here. Unfortunately, the live stream is getting towards its end. Um,
Yeah, don't
we, we
worry.
we can continue speaking on like how to develop out your lesson plans and even the gamified aspect of things in a more structured way, and taking account of everything that you mentioned privately to us as well.
Thank
Um,
you.
Obviously, we have the benefit of Jonathan here, and thank you, Satya, for joining today as well. So there's a bit of a great think tank here, and we could definitely utilize this to create something solid for people to build up their security and system design knowledge about as they vibe code away these applications.
Absolutely. I'm glad. I'm glad to meet Jonathan.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you too. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add one more small topic if you have some time, right? So
Yeah.
the more and more I speak to people on, how did you start, where did you start the year, and where are you now, and what are you really thinking? Uh, yes, there is a lot of progress, but at the same time, people are also telling all that we have done is expose what's not working, right? So there's
Yes.
lot of things that we were in the phase where we all assumed, okay, it's going to be simple, and now people are thinking it's not that simple, right? So there is, for example, even the best of the best models, particularly when people are moving to try and see if I can do some modeling on my own, what they are finding out is you could have trained the model great and everything, but then depending upon where your data was, if you do not understand the poisons in your data, there is this new term coming up, how much is a poison data that can go and affect your model. So these things, I think people are realizing now. I think any benchmarks we can have, or any I've been researching on this to try and understand where all the damage has happened, right? With people coming out and say, I tried this, it didn't work, right? And then the other aspect of it is people are really, really focusing on, okay, the honeymoon period is over. Now it is costing me money, and my CFO is asking what I'm getting out of it, right? So the idea then is to say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and what worked for what reason, and what didn't work for what reason, right? I think that corpus of knowledge is very important for us to figure out what the next steps are. I think we are, based on at least my internalization of what we are talking about, there is still a slew of things to understand and figure out, how to steer this forward. So data sets, any definitions of what worked, what did not work, I think those are all very important things to collect, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are.
There's a,
Sorry, Nav.
I think the system design can help with that.
Yes, we also would like to find out, right, in this industry, in these kind of examples, people got to 30%. In this industry, people actually got to 70%. In this particular domain, they are still in the doldrums because it really doesn't fit into, for example, math is progressing better now, right? uh, Anything where there is regulatorily, for things like underwriting, it's not doing well at all, right? So there are differences in how people are thinking, and just selling Claude or something generic to every industry is not panning out like what they thought about.
Yeah. I just wanted to add one point. I think me and Satya met recently, and I think this is what we were discussing about. Uh, the fundamental, the current LLM has been designed for general purpose, right? They are designed. They are also called as a general purpose LLMs, general purpose GPTs, right? So the main thing is that how do you design the benchmark that is related with the profession, and then how you can evaluate that that benchmark, that okay, based on these tasks it is able to perform certainly good for that particular profession. So at entire, I believe that entire benchmark, if this particular has to if the agents has to change the way that we work, it has to be certain tasks. The example is, let's say I work in fintech, and then I do 30 tasks on day-to-day basis, and if I give those 30 tasks which I do manually to the agent, how effectively it is able to do with this model. Let's say take example of Opus 4.8, Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and then you evaluate these models. That okay, with Gemini, it was able to do this task to a certain state, and with the Opus, it is able to do. So this kind of new benchmark system will come going forward. This is what I believe, and then that will be targeted for those profession, and then you will be able to see that okay, the ChatGPT is good for math, but Opus is good for doing some research tasks for healthcare, right? So I think this is what we are looking at.
There's a war on benchmarks. There's people going crazy. They create their own benchmarks because they don't think that the official benchmarks are reflecting the true value of the models. So there's quite a number of communities that publish their own benchmarks. independently.
Yeah, there are technical benchmark and
This is
there are no, I agree with you, Jill, right? So there is two kind of benchmark. So one is the benchmark which is technical, that is good, right? But I think this will be acceptable when you, because if you look at the profession wise, whatever we are doing in the similar in fintech in US, probably even in Italy also you will be doing maybe little bit different, but not more different. The function of the finance of fintech operations will be same in US, in Italy. So those benchmark, if somebody is able to automate that process and come up with that, okay, this is the benchmark based on hundred of tasks which is done by finance account managers, right? So, and then this model is best for finance account managers. This came out with this much of percentage of whatever that eval is. So those, that will be much more, I would say, acceptable compared to what other technical benchmark is, and then you'll be able to give that particular profession, whoever is working on that profession, the confidence that I can use this tool or use this particular LLM with confidence to automate, and then I just need to review it afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's definitely great points, and it's great to understand what the ways benchmarks can define how how these LLMs work per industry, and how they work in general from the technical aspect as well. Um, Definitely a perspective that I didn't think about is how LLMs work in different industries. I think that's great to think about and to understand like what the expected outputs are and how close do they get to that, and to even understand how to get that data right from the different aspects of an industry. Right, I know it gets complicated within the industry itself. Right, so to understand what expected outcomes are is a challenge. Um,
Can I share one thing that is a good example of the amount of war that is going on in the AI industry,
yeah,
in the blockchain, within the blockchain? Okay,
sure.
this project is called Litcoin, and they basically they have a mining mechanism. It's a token on the base network, and it's they have a mining mechanism that allows people to mine data and to clean the data to train models. If you look at the link that I shared, you can see two things. One is that the Litecoin network is closing, and this is a news for me. It's like 5 days ago, I was talking with the founder, and he didn't tell me anything. Okay, so it's something completely new. And also, this is the page of the benchmarks that are the benchmarks are of their two models. One is a big model, and the other one runs on mobile phones. They are all both built on the open source or open weight model from Google, and they are trained with the clean data that the Litecoin network has mined, and the performance of the model, the benchmark for the performance of the model is the second benchmark. For the pocket model, you have a gain in the functionality of 108%, just because they trained it with some good data, not synthetic data. But the project is closing. Okay, so I just saw that it's closing in 4 days. So I need to unstake my my Litecoin. at the moment.
That's good. It's a good thing that you shared the link today then.
Yeah, exactly. This was a good project. I don't know what's happened, but I know there are some base grants that are going around for the tokens that are on base. So I hope because they have also a tokenomic, very peculiar tokenomic. So probably they are building something different. I'm gonna ask the guy why this is happening. But
That's an interesting point. I'm just curious. This is just me understanding, right?
yeah.
The blockchain stuff has been in the downturn for about a year now, right? Uh, is that what is killing all these projects, or I see the fundamentals improving, but the pressures of whatever the market is doing is probably putting pressure on these projects. That's one point. But do what are your thoughts on the blockchain and AI actually coming together?
Aeronco is a good example because, in particular, because you can stake near. That's something I was saying yesterday, maybe, in the Legion chat. Because staking is like it's a metaphor of contributing to decentralization. Because when you stake your tokens, you stake into a node. So you are, in a way, contributing to the decentralization and earning something, not much. Okay, like 20%, I think, is for for staking near, and it's basically the amount that you earn is the earning of the node, and that shares the earning with all the stakers. And this is contributing to decentralization, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so if you mixing the AI inference with the contribution to the decentralization, it's a really nice point that has been made by the near AI community, and I like it. I like it a lot because it's a way of spreading the good word about AI. It's something that Hugging Face has been doing for a couple of years now, and it's slowly. Okay. So, for example, I have a space on Hugging Face, and this space is a free coder agent that I have set up 1 year and a half ago. And now people that come now to Hugging Face, they cannot do it anymore because Hugging Face is not doing this service anymore for people. Okay. Near is still doing it. It's cool. Okay. But I think the problem with the Litecoin project is not the blockchain. In fact, I know, I am sure that the blockchain could be a way for them to go on with their project. I think the problem is the AI part, is the fact that they use Gemma as a model, and because they have a tokenomics connected with the inference too. It's very complicated to explain. It was meant to create the same thing that Near is creating with the staking, but it didn't work. It had an issue that I pointed out to them like 3 weeks ago. I don't think they fixed it. I think they are booting up a new project because the tokenomics were they had a problem.
Okay, got it.
Jill, are you referring to staking to contribute towards your inferencing costs for near AI?
I think that Near AI has a good solution. Litecoin have tried a solution, but they failed. on the tokenomics side.
Yeah, I think the staking aspect is pretty amazing.
It's awesome. Yes.
I'm partaking into it myself, and it also gives like a instant validation of why these blockchains are valuable, right? Because it's needed. If you're creating this need for inferencing, then it's infinitely valuable, right? For inferencing costs.
It is, and it's also a way of democratizing AI inference. You know, so it's sharing knowledge as a practice connected to the central. It's beautiful to me. For me, it's beautiful because it's ethically correct. Okay. So and you can see the result because you say it's very validating. Okay. It's like that.
That's great design advice. You know, if something is like ethically correct, you know, then that's what you should do. You know, if you're building something and you feel you're building something that is like ethically correct, I think that's a great motivation to build it, because then people will like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably
but
the
you
best
see,
time.
projects like Litecoin, they have a good tech, but they miss the link to the product. And Nier is doing right. So probably that's the reason why they closed. I don't know. I didn't speak with the guy yet, so I can't say. But yeah. Their model was trained well, so they have good models. That the AI part was done well, okay, but the blockchain part not.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to pause things. It looks like Near is the one that's starting to figure out what the cross chain between blockchain and AI are. So I think we're in a good space, and it's a good place to experiment and see how we can continue fine tuning things to make this both ethically correct and a solution, a system of solution for the many problems that are out there. So yeah, thank you guys for.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for
Thanks
joining.
to you.
Thank all you guys for joining. Looking forward to continue speaking next week.
Bye.
We'll continue working on these projects and we'll continue
Okay.
understanding how to
Nice chatting.
these lessons plans as well. Thank you all you guys, and thank everyone for listening in on our highly technical but infinitely valuable conversation. Bye bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye. Have a great day.